This is going to be a short video on the ATN Obsidian 4 app and its functionality. Few things about this video. One, it will work whether you're using a Thor 4, ATN Excite 4K Pro, or Buck Hunter. For my example, I'm using an ATN Excite 4K Pro 5x20, and the device is an iPhone 6s Plus running iOS 11. The other thing I want to note is if you have not updated your firmware to 3.1.01.185, don't try this. You'll lock your scope up and might lose some of your saved information. With the firmware update, the app is more stable. I will say that I have had it lock up on me a couple of times, but nothing like before. It's usable. It locks up out as frequently as the old Obsidian app locked up with the Excite 2s. So to start off, you're going to want to go to your site and turn on Wi-Fi. If you don't know how to do that, you can reference your user manual. I will eventually try to make some videos on how to enable the Wi-Fi and stuff. But for now, turn on Wi-Fi. Once you have your Wi-Fi enabled, you're going to launch your settings. Go to Wi-Fi on your phone. You'll see something like Excite 4K or Thor 4. You'll click on it. The password is all lowercase, ATN Smart HD. Again, that's ATN Smart HD, all lowercase. When I hit join or connect, on the iPhones, you'll see that it will tell you there's no internet connection. Don't let that discourage you. That's normal. It just means that the site itself doesn't have the ability to get your phone to the internet. You are still connected to your site. Once you've connected, we'll jump out of settings here, and we're going to go ahead and launch the Obsidian 4 app. I'm going to go ahead and hit connect to my device. You'll see two options, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Again, with the 1.8.5 firmware, mid-June 2018, the Bluetooth isn't enabled yet. So we'll leave it on Wi-Fi. Go ahead and hit your site name. It'll bring you to the shortcuts menu. Start out with, in the top right corner, those three lines. If I click on those, I have the ability to turn my site off. I have the ability to find out information about the application and my site. You can see it tells me the app version and my site firmware. And last, support. Support will take you to ATN's website. Going into the different functions here, we have system menu. This is your basic settings. Environment, you'll use this if you are a long-range shooter and you're using the Ballistics Calc app. Profiles and zeros, one of the main features of this app that probably I use more than anything else. Reticle style and color, and then remote viewfinder. We'll cover each one of those, but let's start with system menu. On the Excite 4K Pro, you'll have night vision at the top. On the Buck Hunter, you will have photo video as your top. And on the Thor, you'll have thermal. I'm not going to go through too much about this because I don't want to get too site specific. I am going to tell you that with the Thor and the Excite 2, one of the great features about this app is that I can go in and make changes to my scope setup and see them in real time versus having to go through the site menu and then exit back out and see what it looks like and then go back and make the change. Example like this is the light sensitivity. If it was nighttime and I had my Sniper Hog Light on and was sitting in a blind, I could go in here and say, okay, what does low light sensitivity look like versus high? And it's almost instantaneous. So I'm seeing that change real time and not having to go through the site menus and go back and kind of go back and forth. So it's a great tool when you're starting to learn your site to figure out your personal preferences. Photo video, I can turn my mic on and off for recording. Video quality, there are three options here. It's a little misleading with the current firmware. Only 30 frame and 60 frame are active. If I try to hit 120, you saw it just defaulted back to 60. Whereas if I hit 30, I can select it. I can select 60. So again, hopefully 120 will be activated in the next release. Format SD card. I can erase my card from my phone. I'm not going to do that right now as I have profiles saved to it. Screen brightness. This is again is one of those features that's really nice because you can be sitting there looking through your scope and say, what does one look like versus five? And it's happening real time in the scope again versus having to go in and out of the menus to see that. Personal preference at night, I usually keep it on 2. During the day, I'm hunting out of blinds, so I usually keep it on 4. If I am spot and stalk and it's real sunny, I might turn it all the way up to 5. Display widgets, pretty straightforward. If you look through your site when it's from the factory, you have all those angle measurements on the sides. You have compass at the top and some other stuff. If you go to minimal, you're going to have your crosshairs and your zoom magnification, and that's it. So it's a real clean picture if you go to minimal. I don't mind the clutter. I leave it on extended. Basic settings. This is great for the first time user when you first turn it on. I can change my units from standard to metric. I can enable date and time via Wi-Fi versus manual. What this means is that when I connect my phone to the site, it picks up the time and date from my phone versus me having to enter that information manually. Wi-Fi, I have not played with this much. I know that you can rename and change your passwords. I was afraid if I did it, I would just mess it up and I'd forget it or whatever. So if you mess with it, I'd love to know what your comments are below. If it worked for you, or if it gave you problems, let us all know, please. Controller, again, Bluetooth not enabled on the 185 firmware. If you have the X-Track remote, when Bluetooth is enabled, you can tell the site the direction you've put it on your rifle so that the scroll wheel functions in a more intuitive way. Device type. This is really important. When you first get your site, or if you do a factory reset, or if you have to do a hard reboot, it will default to none. With none, you don't have the ability to see your zoom level in the top right corner, and you cannot use the ballistics calc feature. It's really important that whether you're shooting a Thor 4 or an X-Sight, you select the proper device type. Zoom, standard, and extended. I never use extended. It gets really grainy. It's kind of fun to play with. I don't remember how high it goes up, and I know it gets up above 30. So it can really zoom in, but you're looking at a pixelated image. Last is your firmware version. Again, if you needed to look it up, you could do it really quickly from here. Next, we'll go over here to environment. I'm not going to make a lot of changes here. Really what it boils down to is you can change the ballistics, or you can change the environment settings for the ballistics compensation. I can change the humidity, wind speed, and wind direction. When I hit sync, they update to the phone. Temperature, barometric pressure, and altitude all come pre-entered. I think it comes from the scope, or it's picking it up from your phone. I'm not 100% sure there. Moving on to one of my favorites is this profile. The nice thing about this is the ATN sites have the ability to create up to 6 profiles. You can create profiles in the scope, but you can't rename them. So what you end up with is something like this profile 3.265550 at 0 yards. With the app, I can go in here and I can rename that profile to something more logical. If I can make it tight, there we go. So I'm gonna call this 22 long rifle, right? I can call it whatever I want for the most part. I'm gonna hit apply, and it updates the site. And say low BC on a 22, bullet grain, we'll say is 40. I'm just making stuff up here. Velocity 1900. So why is this important? If you're going to use the ballistics calc app to help you reach further distances, this information needs to be accurate, and it will help that out. If you're one of those folks that have to sight your rifle in at a 25-yard range, this is where it really becomes important if you're going to hunt past 25 yards, because there's such a ballistic, the bullet changes so much over that distance of 25 to say 150. So sight height on my rifle, it's an AR. I'm using high rings, not extra high that come with it, but actually high rings. And so my sight sits just, a 32nd of an inch off of my rail. And my sight is 2.9 inches. So really on that short sight in distance, that sight height is critical. You want to be within about a 1/16 of an inch. Again, you hit apply and you're good to go. You can also do the zero reticle feature from the phone, although I would tell you the lag makes it really not a usable feature. I will go ahead and show it to you. Know that I would never do it. One other thing to note, anytime in my video you see me screen sharing with the rifle, my screen on the phone locks up, the rifle doesn't lock up, and if I'm not recording, my screen does not do this. Yes, there's some flicker, but my phone just doesn't have the processing power to record video, record audio, and screen capture all at the same time. So I'm going to show you this, but no, in real life, it's a better picture quality than what you're going to see in my video. The zero mode, I've gone ahead and logged in or hit the zero feature. You can see, I'm just looking down the street here, that car is 140 yards, maybe 120 yards from where I'm sitting. You'll see those flickers happen. Eventually my whole screen is going to lock up, but that's again not the sight, that's my phone. If let's say I cloned it and I wanted to start with a new zero, I could just hit that middle button. You saw my X and Y went to zero. I can use these directional pad here to change my X, Y to whatever I need. I can even zoom in. So it's functional. Again, I just think it's much easier to do this directly from the site. Go ahead and zoom all the way back out. But that's the zero feature in the app. I've exited out of the zero reticle. I'm back in the current profile. Couple of things here. In the profile, I can rename them, but I cannot create a new one. That is something that you still can't do from the app. I actually have to go to the rifle to create and remove profiles. So just remember that if you create it, you can edit in the app, but you cannot create a new one from the app. Next, we're going to go over here to reticle style. Again, I'm going to click on this and the image may be nice and clear or it may get really fuzzy. That's a limitation of the phone. So here you can see I have the default reticle. It's red and it's just a normal crosshair. My choices are red crosshair, crosshair with a dot, this kind of T with a dot. This is really the one I prefer to use most time during, you can see there my screen flickered. Again, it would not do this if I wasn't recording, but I like this reticle in red for day and green for night. And I also like this guy over here is one of my favorites for night if I'm shooting and we're doing moving targets, just personal favorites. You can see the color changes. It's locked up again, not because of the sight, but because of my phone. Once I select my reticle and I hit save, it will update real time to the phone or to the site, and you'll be good to go. So the next setting is the viewfinder. And I love this feature. This allows you to share the view with your phone, or share the view of the scope through your phone with one of your hunting buddies, or if you're someone who likes to have your rifle mounted to a tripod, you can literally sit back in your hunting chair and scan or leave it pointed at your feeder and be lazy about it. So let me show you that. Okay, so I've got the screen share going. One thing I want to point out is if I look through the scope right now, my crosshairs are directly on the cap of that light. You'll notice the crosshairs on the screen are to the left. This caused some confusion last time my son and I went hunting. He was shooting, I was looking through the scope. I'm going, you're not looking at the target. What are you doing? And so I trusted him. He made the shot. He shot the best hog of his life. It was great, but going back and looking at the video, his shot was perfect behind the ear. It looked to me like he was about to shoot him in the guts. Note that hopefully they'll fix that in some future firmware update. It doesn't really detract from being able to use the screen share. Obviously, half the screen not being visible on my phone does. Your phone shouldn't do that. It's only doing that because I'm screen recording, it's kind of stopped now. I just love this feature. I can zoom using the phone, using the sight. Right now I'm turning the wheel on the sight to zoom in, pan left and right. It does not get this grainy or crazy when I'm using the phone without recording. But really, that's it. Screen sharing in a nutshell. It's just a fun tool to be able to use. Really, that's it for this video. If there's anything else you want to see, topics you want me to cover, questions you have, leave a comment below. I'll be more than happy to answer.